The protagonist, Masato, was suddenly transported to a world where the male-to-female ratio was an astonishing 1:5. Apart from this, the world was strikingly similar to his original one, which allowed him to adapt with little difficulty. However, he hadn't yet realized how challenging it was to live an ordinary life in such a skewed world. He reflected that everyone has likely dreamed of being popular with the opposite sex at some point. Yet, Masato was visibly frustrated. And the reason? A girl approached him, playfully invading his personal space, and suggested they have tea together, just for a little while. In his thoughts, Masato apologized, explaining he never wanted this attention, and that no matter how many times he declined, the girls persisted, making him worry about being late. He stammered that he was in a hurry. The girl, undeterred, insisted he at least share his contact information. Resigned, Masato thought to himself, forget it, and began to reach for his phone. But before he could, a voice called out his name. Masato! It was Koumi who grabbed his arm and urged him to hurry because class was about to start. Masato protested, asking her to wait a moment. He wondered if escaping like this was too rude, glancing back to see the girl click her tongue in annoyance, her glare terrifying him. Koumi, exasperated, reminded Masato that he could simply ignore such advances. He laughed awkwardly, admitting that ignoring people was harder than it seemed. Koumi, pouting, told him his kindness was what made him so worrisome. Masato thought to himself that this wasn't something typically said to a college guy, but acknowledged that in this world, Koumi was probably right. He had been transported to this world a month ago. Initially, he hadn't noticed anything strange because it felt so similar to his previous life. But then he discovered the extreme gender imbalance. One man for every 5 women. He confessed he didn't understand why this was the case, but it had made the women in this world remarkably bold, with some even discussing the legalization of polygamy. When he realized he was in an unfamiliar world, he was terrified. He recalled having friends, attending school, and laughing over trivial things in his old life, only realizing how precious that normalcy was after losing it. He had thought he'd have to abandon any hope of an ordinary life. But then, he met someone who became his guardian, offering support. He also made friends who helped him through difficult moments. Though he still didn't know why he was brought to this world, he felt grateful for meeting such kind people. And more than that, Koumi interrupted, asking what was wrong as she noticed him lost in thought. Masato reflected that thanks to the skewed gender ratio, even a beautiful girl like Koumi paid attention to him, something he deemed impossible in his previous world. He considered himself lucky in a way. The people in this world kept him hopeful. Though the world had changed, he resolved to live as normally as he could. Koumi, observing his changing expressions, offered him a warm, pleasant smile. Masato reflected that he had never realized how simple-minded he truly was. 1 week earlier, Koumi let out a frustrated noise, complaining that the Upu players, male characters who joined First Fantasy Online just to be pampered, were incredibly annoying. She mentioned overdoing it in the game the previous day and grumbled about the location of their first-period classroom. Nearby, 2 boys sat on a table, casually discussing her. One remarked that Koumi was actually pretty cute, rating her about 85 points. The other noted she just barely made the cut, adding that if she asked, he might consider dating her. Koumi, overhearing them, thought to herself with growing irritation that men were so arrogant. She fumed that they made no special effort and lacked anything particularly exceptional, yet believed they held the right to choose, a dynamic she felt had always existed. In her imagination, she pictured the boys smugly offering to date her, suggesting she be grateful for their attention or even just for them speaking to her. Those imagined words echoed in her mind, and she deemed them utterly unacceptable. But then, she bumped into someone and apologized. The boy she collided with brushed it off, saying it was fine, and patted her head with a smug, confident expression. He asked if she had fallen in love with him at first sight, offering to make her his third girlfriend, assuming she'd be grateful for such a proposal. Kumi's expression shifted to a mix of shock, disgust, and growing anger. She thought to herself that men were just too much, but her thoughts trailed off. Overwhelmed, she sighed and slumped face down on a desk. Her classmate, noticing her distress, asked what was wrong and urged her to push through to the end. Koumi admitted she didn't think she could keep going. Her classmate, undeterred, encouraged her to stay positive for the campus life they'd dreamed of, excitedly proclaiming they had to catch a handsome guy. Koumi thought to herself that such an attitude was unacceptable. However, she acknowledged that her own perspective, resisting the need to be chosen, was likely what made her abnormal in this world. She recognized that men were rare and valuable, holding the power to choose, their sharp, scrutinizing gazes ever present. Her classmate asked who Koumi was aiming for in their badminton club. Koumi, caught off guard, stammered that she didn't have anyone in mind right now. Her classmate, surprised, pointed out that Kato-san was pretty handsome, Koumi agreed half-heartedly, but in her thoughts, she clarified that it wasn't about wanting a boyfriend. She was simply tired of always being in the position of being chosen. In her imagination, she envisioned a guy who was kind to women, treated them as equals, and had a clean appearance. She wondered if such a person existed, admitting it felt like a luxurious fantasy, something straight out of a fairy tale. Her classmate teased that Koumi, despite being cute, was surprisingly passive and warned that if she didn't pursue someone more aggressively, she'd end up single. Koumi echoed the sentiment, agreeing that it was probably true. She thought to herself that a girl like her, who made no effort to be chosen, surely would remain single. The two parted ways with Koumi bidding Masato farewell. Koumi glanced at her phone and groaned, noting that class was cancelled and no one around seemed to have free time. Meanwhile, Masato, looking distressed at his laptop, muttered that he had nothing to do and was clueless about which classes to take. Koumi, observing him, hesitated about whether to offer help as no one else was around. She thought to herself that someone would likely help him anyway, but felt it would be wrong to leave him struggling. She noticed his furrowed brows and sensed something different about him, something that set him apart from others. She wondered if it was his appearance, acknowledging he was handsome but not celebrity level. Yet, it wasn't just his looks, it was as if he radiated a unique inner light. She clarified to herself that she wasn't expecting anything. She was simply curious. Approaching him, Koumi cautiously asked if he was trying to register for courses. Masato, startled, confirmed he was, explaining that his enrollment process had been delayed for certain reasons. Koumi, surprised and slightly flustered with lightly flushed cheeks, thought to herself that she had never seen a man smile so naturally. She offered to help him with an awkward smile, then panicked internally, worrying that her stuttering might seem creepy or that he might think she was hitting on him. She feared he'd be put off. Masato, beaming with genuine happiness and gratitude, asked if that was okay, stating it would really help him out. Koumi, stunned by his unexpectedly positive reaction, thought with a blush that his pure smile wasn't off-putting at all. He shared that he was in her department and faculty, prompting Kumi's internal panic as she wondered if his movement meant she could sit next to him. She questioned if he had agreed to her help, or if she was misunderstanding, fearing that sitting down might freak him out and make her cry in public, branding herself a crying-in-public crazy girl. Masato, noticing her distress, asked what was wrong. Koumi, sitting beside him, quickly denied anything was amiss and exclaimed that they were in the same department and faculty. Masato, thrilled, said it was a huge help to be assisted by a direct senior, only for Koumi to apologize and clarify that she was also a freshman. Masato, dumbfounded, let out a surprised sound. Kumi's thoughts spiraled, fearing she had been too bold as a freshman offering help, and that he might think she had ulterior motives. She clarified to herself that she was just curious and found his smile cute, worried he'd think she was full of herself and mock her. But Masato, smiling brightly, expressed relief that she was a freshman too, noting he had no friends in his year and was grateful for her help. He introduced himself as Katasato Masato and asked her name. Koumi, feeling a thrill, thought he was kind and genuinely different. She urged herself to stay calm and smile, introducing herself as Igarashi Koumi with a genuine smile, hoping she was smiling properly. Masato acknowledged her name and admitted he was clueless about which classes to take. Koumi, noticing his completely blank schedule, saw an opportunity and thought that since they were in the same department and faculty, they could take all the same classes, allowing them to see each other every day. Masato called out to her, snapping her out of her daze. Koumi, looking down excitedly, suggested they share the same schedule, explaining that since she was already in some classes that had started, she could share handouts and explanations to benefit him. She panicked internally, worrying her fast-talking seemed creepy, and that seeing her every day might feel like torture to him. Masato, however, asked if she was a genius, stating that her suggestion would really help and questioning if it was okay since it offered her little benefit. Koumi insisted there was plenty of benefit for her, reassuring him it was fine. She wondered why he didn't suspect her motives or tease her for trying to get close to him. Masato asked to see her schedule, and Koumi agreed enthusiastically, questioning if this was a convenient dream. Masato thanked her profusely for her help, while Koumi downplayed her contribution. Packing his bag, Masato said he was heading home since his student ID hadn't arrived, making attending class pointless for now. Koumi wished him well, saying she'd see him in class when he could start attending. She reflected that this was the first time she'd ever enjoyed talking to a guy so much and looked forward to seeing him every day. Noticing him fidget, Koumi asked what was wrong. Scratching his head, Masato hesitantly asked a favor, then, with a gentle smile and direct gaze, asked if she'd be his friend. Koumi, wide-eyed and blushing, felt her thoughts churn. She recalled how men typically held the power to choose, comparing Masato's words to those of other boys who arrogantly offered to date her or be her friend or demanded gratitude for their attention. She thought about being the one chosen, her eyes sparkling with small stars. Koumi eagerly agreed, and Masato, sighing with relief, thanked her, admitting he had no friends and was now looking forward to university thanks to her. Waving as he walked away, he said he'd see her later. Koumi stood frozen. Then her knees buckled as she clenched her fist, declaring to herself that she couldn't handle it. Feeling shy and breathless, she thought Masato was like a prince, exactly what she had imagined, from his personality to his appearance and even his vibe. She repeated his name in her mind, consumed by her desire to have all of him. With a bashful smile, she softly said his name aloud. The scene shifted to the present day. Koumi huffed and pouted, thinking to herself that if she didn't keep an eye on Masato, girls would immediately flock to him because he was far too oblivious. She acknowledged, however, that his obliviousness was one of his good qualities. Masato stopped and looked at her, prompting Koumi to ask what was wrong. He stammered that it was nothing, then reached into his pocket, pulling out something. He asked Koumi to hold out her hand for a moment. Confused, she extended her hand, and Masato dropped small, wrapped candies or snacks into her open palm. Koumi, surprised, asked what they were. Masato explained that it was a small thank you for her earlier help, apologizing that it was just a snack, but expressing genuine happiness and gratitude for her assistance. Kumi's eyes widened, a distinct blush spreading across her cheeks, reflecting both surprise and embarrassment. She murmured that it was unfair. Masato, confused, asked what she meant. Koumi, with a slightly flustered expression, brushed it off, urging him to go. In her thoughts, she reflected that Masato was truly unfair, doing exactly the things she wished someone would do for her. She noted how his unexpected acts of kindness like this one brought her immense joy and felt like they saved her. Though it was still difficult for her, she resolved that one day she would definitely become his girlfriend. At Masato's apartment, someone called out to him, noting it was almost noon. Masato acknowledged her, saying he was going, as he checked his smartphone to confirm his class schedule. He reflected that it had been a month since he arrived in this parallel world, where a version of himself, Kanemoto Masato, had already existed, having just graduated from high school and preparing for college. Initially uneasy about reincarnating, he now felt he was living a fairly normal life, largely thanks to someone special. That special person is Aika Tsukuda, standing with her arms crossed, greeted him and reminded him he had a shift at the shop at 6 p.m. Masato thought that Aika had helped him right after he arrived in this world, becoming his guardian and a goddess-like figure. He noted she was married, expressing hope that she and her husband were getting along. Aika mentioned that Masato had been exercising before work recently and suggested he didn't have to go that day. Locking his room, Masato explained he exercised until he was tired and sweaty. Aika asked how things were going and whether he had made any friends at college. Masato hesitantly replied that he guessed he had. Aika, sounding suspicious, scolded him not to let any strange girls trick him, to inform her if he was staying out overnight, and to drop the honorifics when addressing her. Masato rushed off, agreeing to leave, prompting Aika to point out that he still hadn't dropped the honorifics. Masato reflected that to the people of this world, he must seem like an ordinary girl from his original world. The scene shifted to a classroom filled with students, where Koumi called out to Masato, waving enthusiastically. Masato greeted her back, thanking her for saving him a seat. Koumi assured him she'd always do that for him. He thought to himself how grateful he was to have her as a friend. Koumi tugged his shoulder, suggesting they have a meal together as thanks for saving him a seat, her smile leaving Masato stunned. He wondered if she was some kind of cute creature and if her gesture meant she liked him, a question mark forming in his mind as he caught himself nearly slipping into what he called virgin mode. He asked if she meant that night, apologizing because he had a shift. Koumi, disappointed, asked if his shifts were always on Fridays. Masato noted there was one previous week too. Koumi suggested they have the meal on Monday instead, and Masato agreed it worked for him. Koumi expressed her excitement and happiness, saying she was looking forward to it. Masato, flustered, thought to himself that Koumi was being excessively cute and wondered if she was doing it on purpose. He urged himself to stay composed, deciding to let it slide because of her charm. He acknowledged her kindness in helping with course registration and keeping him company in class, reflecting that in his original world, he likely wouldn't have even gotten close to someone like her, who seemed popular with both guys and girls. Not knowing much about her friendships, he felt a bit guilty for monopolizing her time, assuming her other friends also wanted to take classes with her. Masato asked if it was really okay for her to spend so much time with him, suggesting she might prefer taking classes with her other friends. Koumi, deep in thought, denied this, explaining she could see her friends at the club or elsewhere. Masato insisted she make time for her friends too, assuring her he had caught up with the class and could manage on his own. Koumi, staring at him with deep dark eyes, asked why he said that. Masato, confused, wondered if he had said something strange, noting her smile but finding it oddly unsettling. The perspective shifted to Koumi before Masato arrived. Entering the classroom, Koumi noticed Masato wasn't there yet. She thought to herself that she couldn't help it and decided to save him a seat. She texted Masato, informing him she had saved a seat for him, and wondered if adding a heart emoji would make him cringe, quickly deciding he probably wouldn't mind. Reflecting on the past month with Masato, Koumi thought he was excessively kind, to the point that it worried her. She noted his lack of guard around girls, which she found unusual, but admitted had allowed her to get close to him. She worried, however, that a manipulative girl might trick him, resolving to protect him by staying by his side as much as possible during college. She imagined a future where Masato would kiss her and thank her for everything. Playfully, she thought about protecting him even outside of college, though she quickly dismissed it as a joke. Her phone buzzed with Masato's reply, featuring a sparkling cat emoji saying thank you. Koumi found it cute and responded that it was okay. With a determined expression, she thought resolutely that she would absolutely protect him. She reflected that despite spending so much time together, their relationship hadn't progressed further, and she desperately wanted Masato to be her boyfriend. When Masato entered the classroom, Koumi called out to him, and they sat together. She thought to herself that she couldn't afford to mess things up and needed to be certain he wouldn't reject her before confessing, planning to take things step by step. With a delighted expression covering her mouth, she decided the next step was a date, a one-on-one outing outside of school to learn more about Masato's likes, food preferences, and hobbies. She saw the situation as an opportunity to deepen their connection. Calling out to Masato, she suggested they have a meal together as a thanks for saving him a seat. Nervously, she wondered if her boldness was too much, fearing he might not even notice her otherwise. Masato asked if she meant that night, apologizing because he had a shift. Koumi suggested the following Monday, and Masato agreed it worked for him. Overjoyed, Koumi exclaimed her excitement, her face radiating anticipation and happiness. She thought about making dinner reservations and considered activities like shopping or karaoke, wondering what Masato would enjoy and debating whether to ask him directly. Masato asked if it was really okay for her to spend so much time with him, suggesting she might prefer taking classes with her friends. Nervously, Koumi denied this, thinking to herself that she wanted to be with him and that their time together never felt like enough. She explained she could see her friends at the club or elsewhere. Masato insisted she make time for her friends too, assuring her he had caught up with the class and could manage alone. Koumi, hurt, thought he might not want to be with her and asked why he said that. Masato, unsure how to express himself and showing mild concern, explained just thought she might want to take classes with other girls too. Koumi asked if he disliked taking classes with her, immediately regretting her words. Looking downcast and worried, she asked if he'd rather take classes with another girl, thinking to herself that someone like her, who didn't feel cute, might be disliked. She clarified in her mind that she just wanted to be with him, pleading internally for him not to push her away or become out of her reach. Masato quickly denied this, insisting it was nothing like that and expressing gratitude that a beautiful girl like Koumi let him take classes with her, adding that he had no other friends besides her. Stunned, Koumi asked if he really thought she was a beautiful girl, her thoughts racing as she processed his words. Smiling gently, Masato confirmed she was cute and encouraged her to have more confidence. Blushing with overwhelming happiness, Koumi thought that Masato calling her cute was thrilling, especially coming from the person she liked. She shyly acknowledged his words, her face glowing with pure joy, and giggled softly. Masato, slightly confused, looked at her. After class, they parted ways, with Masato waving and saying goodbye. Koumi waved back, reflecting that she hadn't meant to say such things. She realized Masato hadn't mentioned wanting to take classes with another girl, chastising herself for overreacting. From behind, Kumi's classmate Mizuho surprised her with a hug, startling Koumi. Koumi exclaimed Mizuho's name in surprise. Smiling coyly, Mizuho asked why Koumi had a love-struck look on her face. Koumi denied it, though she thought to herself, embarrassed, that she might have been. Mizuho, poking Kumi's cheek, teased that she was making a maiden's face. Koumi protested, asking her to stop. Mizuho mischievously asked when Koumi would introduce the attractive guy she was always in class with. Koumi, caught off guard, thought in surprise and hesitated, unsure how to respond. Mizuho teased further, reminding Koumi of their promise to share information about guys. She pointed out that Koumi had said she couldn't take classes with her, yet now had Hadi beside her, acting sweet, which made Mizuho, who had a thing for attractive guys, feel left out. Koumi, with her hands joined and head bowed, apologized and firmly stated she couldn't introduce him to Mizuho. Mizuho, shocked, asked why. Koumi, with a serious and resolute expression, apologized again, emphasizing her seriousness. She thought to herself that she wouldn't give Masato to anyone. Mizuho, exasperated and in disbelief, remarked that she couldn't believe Koumi would say that while bowing to her best friend. Lifting Koumi up, Mizuho declared that if that was the case, Koumi would have to share information about the other guys instead. Mizuho appeared upset, and Koumi promised to do her best, thanking her and apologizing again. Looking at Koumi, Mizuho hugged her tightly, declaring she would be the one to get a boyfriend first. Koumi protested, asking Mizuho not to touch strange places. Mizuho encouraged Koumi to give it her all, and Koumi smiled softly with a determined expression. Koumi reflected that since falling in love with Masato, every day had been fun, with everything around her sparkling. However, she admitted that when other girls got close to him, or when he mentioned wanting to hang out with other girls, she felt a dark, jealous feeling, questioning if she wasn't enough. She thought she could do anything for Masato and give him everything, realizing she was someone who got jealous easily and wouldn't like it if he hung out with another girl. The scene shifted to a basketball court, where Masato was playing. He thought to himself, wondering what had happened with Koumi earlier, but noted she seemed happy, which he considered a good thing. Someone called out to him, "Oni-san." On a basketball court, Masato shot a hoop and scored. His routine after Friday classes involved playing basketball at this spot before his part-time job started, and he liked it because it wasn't crowded on weekdays. He celebrated his score with enthusiasm, but while he enjoyed sports, he couldn't play them casually in this world due to the overwhelming presence of women. He previously wanted to join Kumi's club, but she had discouraged him, warning that he'd be overwhelmed by aggressive girls and that her club was laid back, which wasn't ideal for exercise. Though she'd be happy if he joined, she advised against it. Masato noted that Koumi had told him not to join her club, leaving him to play alone. But now he wasn't truly alone anymore. A young girl with short dark hair, Maeda Yuka, stood confidently holding a basketball and called out to Masato, addressing him as Oni-san. She declared that today, she would definitely win their match and claim the court for herself. Masato, with a smug grin, teased her, calling her a little girl. Yuka, clenching her little fist, said that she wasn't a little girl anymore, proudly stating she was now a middle schooler. Masato had met Yuka shortly after arriving in this world. He had found this rare, quiet spot to play basketball, but learned Yuka had been using it long before him. The first time they met, he offered her the court, saying he was heading back anyway as she stared at him through the chain-link fence. The next time they crossed paths, Yuka pointed at him with determined eyes and challenged him to a match. Masato and Yuka had grown much closer since then, their encounters evolving into a recurring basketball game where the winner would claim ownership of the spot. He admitted he only had the advantage due to their height difference, acknowledging Yuka's serious skill and predicting that once she grew taller and developed physically, he would likely lose. Yuka, dribbling with a smirk, announced she had a secret strategy for today. During their game, she executed a quick crossover move, juking Masato. He thought to himself that he had anticipated the move, his confident expression showing he was ready to block her. Yuka, with wide, determined eyes and a confident smile, acknowledged his skill, saying it was exactly what she expected from him. As Masato defended, attempting to steal the ball, Yuka spun to his left, juking him again and slipping past. He thought in surprise that she had used a roll move, while Yuka, confident, thought she had him beat. However, Yuka tripped over her own foot about to faceplant. Masato, moving swiftly, caught her just in time, preventing her from hitting the ground. Relieved, he thought he was thankful he made it in time and asked if she was okay. Yuka, wide-eyed and surprised, found herself on top of him, with Masato on the ground beneath her. Both were stunned. Masato, with visible sweat drops, grimly thought that the situation looked bad and feared others might misinterpret it, imagining they could call the police and label him a pedophile. Panicking, he thought he needed to get Yuka to move. He called her name, and Yuka, equally confused, responded hesitantly. Blushing intensely like a ripe tomato, Yuka clasped her hands over her face, overwhelmed with embarrassment and shock, before fainting. Masato, confused and worried, stammered in alarm, unsure what had happened. Yuka recalled the first time she truly spoke with Oni-san. Even then, a spark of something special had stirred within her. 1 month ago, 3 girls were walking together, chatting lively. Yuka's friend expressed shock upon learning that Rika was dating Shoya. Rika proudly confirmed she had confessed at the entrance ceremony, and he had accepted. The friend called Rika lucky and then turned to Yuka, teasingly asking if she had her eye on anyone. Startled, Yuka stammered that she hadn't. The friend pressed, asking if she hadn't confessed to anyone, to which Yuka hesitantly replied that she didn't like anyone. Her thoughts churned as she struggled to explain that no boy she knew made her heart race, finding them childish and disconnected from her world. During gym class, while the girls, dressed in their uniforms, continued talking, some boys nearby mocked Yuka, pointing out that she was wearing a kid's bra. Another remarked that basketball supposedly made people taller, but claimed no one liked tall girls except perhaps some weirdos. Cough. It's called having a refined taste, kiddo. Rika playfully responded that she was the perfect size, but the boys irritably dismissed her, saying no one cared. Rika teased Yuka for standing out, and Yuka's friend chimed in, saying it must be nice. Yuka didn't find it nice at all, feeling exposed and judged for her height, and wondered silently why they got to decide what was wrong with her and whether she was strange for thinking it was unfair. She admitted to herself that she didn't find the boys attractive and preferred playing basketball over dealing with them. Her friend called her a basketball fanatic, while another admitted she joined the team to get closer to boys, a sentiment echoed by the other friend. Yuka, feeling a bit sad, though she felt a quiet ache over her team's losses. Grinning, Yuka's friend teased that Yuka was secretly perverted, making her blush intensely. Yuka protested that it wasn't true, but her friend insisted everyone had seen her smirking over spicy books in class. Another friend added that she had spotted something suspicious under Yuka's bed during a recent visit. Mortified, Yuka covered her mouth and told them to stop. In her thoughts, she shyly admitted she couldn't help being curious about guys as a girl, but found the boys in their class too immature, thinking she might feel differently if someone cool came along. Her friend continued teasing, calling her secretly pervy Yuka, prompting Yuka to desperately demand they stop. She insisted to herself that she was completely normal. Later, Yuka went to her usual basketball court, hoping to find peace in the game, but she heard a ball bouncing. It was rare for someone to be here at this time, thinking she could share the court if it was just a few people. Peering through the chain-link fence, she saw Masato dribbling alone, huffing with effort. His swift, fluid movements stunned her. She thought it was unusual for a guy to practice alone, marveling that his moves were like those in pro videos and that she had never seen a guy play so well. She was in awe as Masato made a perfect layup, and she thought he was incredibly cool. When Masato noticed her staring and wiped sweat from his brow, their eyes met, and Yuka panicked, thinking he had caught her staring. He smiled warmly and said he was leaving, offering her the court. Yuka stammered in response, confused. She wondered if he was leaving because she arrived, admiring his kindness for offering the court, but realized that if he left, she might never see him again. Urging herself to be brave, she stepped onto the court and tried to speak, but her mind spiraled. She considered saying he was cool, but worried it would seem creepy. Thought about asking for his contact information, but felt it was too desperate, and contemplated inviting him to play basketball, but dismissed it as absurd for a stranger. Blushing and averting her eyes, she mumbled that it was nothing. Masato casually replied that he was heading home and left the court. Frustrated, Yuka thought she was an idiot as her head slumped, but a spark of determination rose within her. She declared to herself that she was Yuka Maeda, a girl who never gave up and vowed to see Oni-san again. For days, she returned to the court hoping to find him, each empty court feeling like a small rejection, yet she persisted, driven by that initial spark. One day, as the school bell rang, she grabbed her bag and rushed out of class. Her friends called out that it was club orientation day, but she shouted back that she was joining basketball anyway. Aoi wondered what was wrong with her, while Rika suggested she might be chasing something or someone. The basketball court echoed with the rhythmic thud of a bouncing ball. Yuka, catching her breath with a mix of excitement and nerves, thought to herself that he was here again. She had worried she might never see him after his absence since their first encounter, but there he was, his shooting form as breathtaking as ever, just as cool as she remembered. Her eyes sparkled with a dazed admiration, cheeks flushed with a shy blush. Clenching her fist with determination, she stepped onto the court. Masato, noticing the door open, recognized her and said with surprise that she was the girl from before. Yuka, gazing up at him nervously, wondered if he truly remembered her despite their brief moment. Her heart raced, her face feeling like it was on fire with joy. She resolved to say something, desperate to avoid the fear of never seeing him again. Pointing at him with newfound confidence, she boldly asked him to have a match with her. Masato, caught off guard, responded with a surprised, "Huh?" Yuka's mind spiraled into panic, thinking she sounded like a complete weirdo. certain she had ruined everything before it even began. She silently pleaded for him not to be scared or report her. To her shock, Masato casually agreed, saying he was looking for someone to play against. With a playful grin, he warned her that he wouldn't go easy and told her to take the first move. Yuka, stunned, thought to herself that he was so kind, hardly believing she was actually playing basketball with him. The game was exhilarating, pure fun that made her heart soar. As they played, she wished the moment could last forever. Out of breath after their match, she thanked him, panting heavily. In her mind, she admitted she couldn't beat him at all, marveling at how amazing Oni-san was at basketball. She noted she had never lost to boys her age before, but grinned, thinking that made it even better. Masato, noticing her exhaustion, asked if she was out of breath and advised her to stay hydrated. Yuka, checking for her water bottle, realized she had forgotten it. Masato, glancing at her bag, offered her his own bottle, assuring her it was fine. Yuka protested, saying she could buy one with her allowance, but Masato insisted, handing her his already opened bottle. She thanked him, staring at the bottle, her face flushing with profound panic. She thought about the idea of an indirect kiss, her mind racing that his lips had touched it. She worried he'd be grossed out if he noticed her overthinking it, fearing he might never want to see her again. Yet she desperately wanted to drink from it, urging herself to act natural and just take a sip, imagining it as a kiss with Oni-san. As she tilted the bottle, she began to sway, overwhelmed. Masato, seeing her falter, rushed to catch her, calling out her name in concern. Yuka, lost in her thoughts, mused that Oni-san was irresistibly seductive. His flushed cheeks, dripping sweat, deft fingers on the ball, slightly exposed stomach, and smooth legs were all utterly captivating. She recalled how she couldn't go through with the indirect kiss, but found solace in the moment she ended up on top of him when he caught her. Snapping awake with a scream, Yuka realized she had somehow ended up on top of him. Masato, relieved, asked if she was okay. Blushing, Yuka assured him she was fine, thinking to herself that she had passed out again and must seem like such a weirdo. She apologized for causing trouble, but Masato brushed it off, saying it was fine, and suggesting they head home since it was getting late. Yuka agreed, her heart sinking as she thought she had blown her chance after finally spending time with him. Masato placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder, telling her not to worry and promising to return the next week to reclaim the court. Yuka, flustered by his closeness, thought to herself how near he was. He offered her a towel, advising her to wipe her sweat properly, quickly adding that it was freshly washed so she wouldn't be weirded out. Staring at the towel, Yuka wondered if it was really Oni-san's. Masato encouraged her, saying that although things didn't go perfectly, her speed was impressive and no single defender could stop her. He told her to have confidence, noting that she was improving and that playing with her was fun for him too. With his signature waving goodbye, he said he'd see her next week and walked off, leaving Yuka alone on the court. Holding the towel, Yuka thought to herself that Oni-san always knew exactly what to say. Since meeting him, she had discovered how wonderful it felt to like someone, her heart completely captivated by his kindness and charm. Yet, she wondered if someone like her could feel this way about him. Instead of wiping her sweat, she brought the towel to her face, sniffing it deeply, her thighs pressing together as she clutched it tightly. In a soft, guilty whisper, she apologized to Oni-san, calling herself a bad girl. Elsewhere, at a bar, someone called out to Masato, saying he had a request. Masato acknowledged it and sat down, greeting a woman beside him with a gentle smile. Noticing her, he playfully remarked that Sarah-san had come back again. Sarah, in a plaid jacket, twirled her hair nervously, looking slightly uneasy.